started, I'm going to tell you right now, this agenda I just got. And so please don't expect me to coherently respond to much of this without prior notice. Communication is very, very important between the superintendent and the board. Excuse me. Communication is very important between the superintendent and the board. And if you expect me to, like I said, be coherent about anything on your agenda, then you need to let me know. So the answer to the number one is...
Well, then we'll just disregard this one.
Okay.
And before we get started, there is something I would like to share. I received a couple phone calls after the last personnel meeting from staff members who were upset that staff was mentioned on YouTube, and they didn't think it was right that we did that we have no right to discuss them in public like we did. So I called and I talked to Brad, and he says at a personnel meeting, you can't stop it. However, administration, if there's things that they want to discuss about certain personnel or name some stuff like that, the administration can call a meeting, and that does not have to be posted and that does not have to be public. Because you cannot use people, and I didn't realize we used anybody's name at that meeting until after they had seen it on YouTube.
I'll be very clear. I did not use anyone's name. I mentioned positions and not names. Our meetings, committee meetings, have to be public. And I too read over Brad's communication very, very carefully and let my attorney read it. And you know, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room with the Open Meetings Act.
Well, I know that. That's why
I
I called
closed. If we're talking about a specific employee and they know that they're on the agenda, they have the right to request that it be closed. Only then should the meeting be open. These are public meetings. Again, I brought specific personnel on the committee agenda, but I did not mention any names. The names were brought up, it was not my
Well, like I said, I just received the phone calls from some teachers saying,
okay, well,
we're not supposed to be doing that.
Which video are we talking about? Which meeting? Because I'd like to go back.
it was on
personnel
YouTube.
meeting.
It was on YouTube.
Is it a recent personnel meeting?
Compliment Citizen Carla, and Citizen Carla has an absolute right to not only attend our committee meetings, but to post them on YouTube too.
Is that a recent meeting?
Yes, the last personnel meeting we had was on a Friday night.
April 17th.
Like I said, I can't even remember a name being mentioned. All I know is the teachers were upset about it. So.
Well, and you know, they have a right to be, I mean, you know, it's America. People
Best answer I've heard today.
Well, and that's why I'm bringing it out, is so that we got to make sure we don't mention anybody's name.
People will get upset about things. We have absolutely no control over their behavior, over their feelings. But I'm sorry if someone's name was brought up. But again, it's a public meeting.
And that door has to be left open.
Yes, it should be.
Why?
Huh? Because it's a public meeting, you can't shut the door.
Well, it's unlocked. But, you know.
Oh, okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
I apologize for being late.
Oh, you're late?
I thought I knew, you know.
Right there.
Apology for being late.
I have staffing 2015-16 on the agenda because we're approaching the end of the school year. In fact, Friday is the last day. And the administrators are still looking at staffing for next year. We have a clear directive about we really can't add new staff because of the depth. Although there are some positions, and Melissa, you probably can back this up, that our former superintendent kind of put us example, a chemistry teacher, and then there's a new state rule about foreign language, a new requirement where our kids have to have 2 years of foreign language, beginning with this class, the junior class. And we only have 1 foreign language teacher. So we're going to have to add a foreign language teacher to make sure that we are
We
able
brought
to
that
fulfill
up
that requirement.
4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, well,
And we kept telling her that we needed it, we needed it, we needed it, and she said they only needed it their last 2 years, so she never, and I kept saying, we're gonna run into trouble,
But when
because,
she said former, she meant,
no,
I was talking about Hill, but you're talking about,
before that. Oh,
Okay.
yes,
Well-
superintendent before that, because I kept saying, what if they get to their senior year and there's no place for them to take that foreign language, this is what's gonna happen, because but she never brought anybody else on.
you know, one of the challenges we have with a foreign language teacher is unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of certified, available foreign language teachers out there. And still, we're gonna post it, but that will be a challenge still for us to fulfill, but we really need to do that.
Well, we had a rough time getting him.
Yes, yes, and he's on emergency certification. I'm closing this door, anybody who wants to come in.
Okay. I said what I'm supposed to.
Because it's noisy.
In relationship to staffing, we're gonna meet this afternoon because one of the things I want the administrators to be is all on the same page. We have a deficit elimination plan. And we can't just go overboard with it. I met with John Chapman, we're trying to get special ed together. I don't know if you were aware, but we did have teachers teaching gen ed that were special ed teachers. And we have to rectify that problem. We
You
can't
can talk a little
Oh,
louder.
we can't have special ed teachers teaching general ed classes. So we gotta right size that. So meeting with John, we're trying to do that, and we're gonna meet this afternoon at 3:30 with all the administrators, because I want everybody to hear the same thing. What happens is a high school wants something, you meet with them, the middle school wants something, and you got the elementary. The other thing I let them know, and I know it's been an issue with Marty, is that an assistant at the middle school right now, we can't afford an assistant. So what I met with Steve Baker on is trying to get people in place, maybe retired people that will come and be a part of the at-risk program and work similar to, what's his name?
Cozy.
Cozy.
Uh-huh.
And that's probably possible. They can work so many days a week, because they can make only so much money, but it adds a plus to the middle school. So we're trying to work on that plan. And also, at the high school, Carol mentioned chemistry teacher. The other issue is, we have to have another gym person, but that gym person can be an at-risk. One of the things Pete and I talked about, that at-risk money is more flexible than when I was here. You know, you had to use it for certain things. So we're gonna try to see in those positions, how many positions can we actually add to at-risk and not have an issue with the state. However, eventually, we're gonna have to do the right things to make sure our school district has the right amount of staff to meet the requirements for the state. So that's why the foreign language is in there. That's why the gym teacher, we're gonna try to do that, and also the chemistry. Can't do the chemistry in at-risk. That's not really considered an at-risk program. So that's what we're trying to do. When we meet today, I know they don't like to hear the word, we gotta stay within the plan, but we have to. Some of the things we may have to do, we can explain that to the state. The requirement, like you said, we should have had another Spanish person. I don't know why it's just one, but it's hard to find.
Yeah, and the one that we have is under emergency.
He wasn't properly certified.
Right,
From the
and
state.
right, and if that person doesn't get
We
certified,
get a penalty.
we get a penalty. We already paid a penalty. Pete talked with the state, and I think they,
We deferred it.
they're putting us on a payment plan because we didn't have someone certified.
But with the at-risk also, the state's increasing that 30% across the state. But with that money, you do have to spend more for college preparatory exams and third grade level testing. So a lot of that money is going to be allocated for those specific projects. So it's not, they are more flexible, but we're not going to get a ton more money when you take into consideration you have to allocate it for those two purposes.
So we should have, when we have the workshop this month, we will go through building by building, so everyone understands what staff we have, especially in the high school, what they're teaching, to make sure we meet the requirements. I want our workshop to be open and transparent, so all the questions can be asked from the board level. Who's in the building, how are we staffed, and what we anticipate that enrollment to be. So we don't have an overpopulation of teachers, but we don't have the kids. And I let the staff know, we have more kids, the more we have staff. I just want to stay with the plan because I believe we can get ours. We just don't start spending money.
And we can always amend the budget in October after we get our fall count, if we need to add new teachers or add people. So it's better to be conservative at the start, and then later on, if we have more funding, we can add more stuff.
So that's what we're doing. Hopefully they're gonna get that done this week.
Yes, we do.
Legislators
have
are
to.
working on the school aid budget this week, so.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about that, they are.
Yeah.
We want to have the staff in place because we want to work on the 15-16 budget starting next week. We want to, Pete's been on it, and we got to get that staff in right. So I think our big issue is special ed when it comes to cost, because some of the costs for special ed, now we're going to have to pay for. And I asked John, what can we live with, what can we live without? So I think he's going to bring that information to the staffing meeting this afternoon.
Yeah, so we get some clarity. We've been out of compliance in terms of the staffing for special ed, not necessarily out of compliance for special ed, but we need to make sure that we are not in a position to be cited for being out of compliance. So we'll have more information by our budget hearing, which is
22nd, June 22nd.
Seeing that special ed has been a sore thumb for the last 3 years. And we just found out about it in August.
Now, what was that with special ed that you just found
The
out?
board did not know until August that there was a problem with special ed and the state. At the August board meeting, they brought me these 3 letters to sign, and that was the first the board had any knowledge that there was a problem. We were never told before.
What was the problem?
Because there was too many kids being put out of school. So now they're in here meeting every month with staff because of it, but we never knew.
well.
When they gave me those 3 letters to sign, that's when we found out.
I'm not sure how you would not know, because this wasn't just a one-year thing. This is something
Because
that's
we
been
weren't told.
happening for the
Oh,
last
that
few
expelling?
years.
Oh, the expelling situation?
But I meant the board was not informed. We had no knowledge until the 3 letters came in August, and they asked me to sign them, and I said, what are these? Now, maybe the former board president knew and wasn't sharing it with us, I don't know, but that was the first that I had knowledge that there had been a problem for the last 3 years.
Well, okay, so, and that's unfortunate. Moving forward, in the spirit of transparency, you'll probably get more information than what you really want from me, because I'll make sure that I share as much as possible.
Is this a matter of the special ed teachers that are working now in the general curriculum, just putting them back?
Right.
Yes, putting
Right.
them back, what they should be doing. I mean, there's a couple that should have self-contained classrooms, just
Okay.
with the special ed students. And then most of them are resource teachers, and so what they should be doing is, they have a caseload of kids, say 15 to 20 students. They should be very much in tune with the student schedules, all the student schedules, and follow them
I see.
to their classes. Hopefully they're in groups, so they'll know what it is they're doing in their individual classes. And then the resource teacher should be meeting as a group with her resource students at least 1 hour of the day. And the main purpose is to back them up on what they're doing in their regular classes. So assist them with any homework that they got, any other assignments. And that's, for whatever reason, was not happening. But we we gotta get back to that.
Well, I said,
That's
they keep,
what
every year it seems like our programs get changed, you know? Because before, they were individual, and then they had to be, although, when I was a substitute teacher in Kanishki's room, I had to take her kids into the English class, you know. But she still had her separate class.
The next on the agenda is administrator salary equity.
One of the things,
Doesn't that go to finance?
well, I don't know, because Jay asked me to tell him what administrators were and what they would be in the next school year. We have two administrators, John Chapman and Steve Baker. I'm not sure what level they're on. I couldn't find why they were paid lower than the two we hired. Two new ones being Susan Duran and
Right there.
Brian McCarthy.
Wouldn't that have been in the VAPA's contract, what they were
It
paid?
doesn't tie into it.
It doesn't
That's the
align,
problem.
it doesn't align with
We
the
don't have
backup.
it.
The last two administrators that were brought in, I'm
I
not
don't
sure
know
where
where
those
the numbers
salaries, where
came
those numbers came from. They just kind of pulled them out of a hat.
So they didn't follow the contract when they were hired.
Didn't follow the salary schedule, no. And so then the challenge is, how do you fix that? Because those administrators that have been here, of course, are a little disturbed because we have these two new administrators that are making more money than they are. And do you move them up in the salary, or do you, the new administrators, move them down? And it's really a damn if we do, damn if we don't type situation.
You'd have to, if you wanted to change the salary schedule, you'd have to look at the contract.
And that's the issue, is they're not even on the salary schedule, so I don't know who decided what they would make. The two senior people, that would be John
What
and
difference
Steve.
we're talking
You know what I'm going to do is send you what I sent Jay, because we need to talk about it. Because
Yeah, salary should go to the
It's
finance.
almost,
do you want us to talk about it finance?
That's where it
That's
should go.
fine, I will do that.
Because it's money, so
in
that's
some
where it should
cases,
be.
it's almost
Okay,
$10,000.
then since Jay asked for the information, we can talk about it later. I'll have all the information again.
just as it's,
No, no, it
No, it doesn't. Okay.
And then, but you've also, like, the one has, what, preschool through 5th grade?
Yes.
And then the other one's only got 3 grades, and then the other one's got 4 grades, right?
Yes.
Yes. I'll tell you, typically in other school districts, there is a difference between elementary administration, middle administration, assistants, and then high school. Typically, the high school makes more. And then the middle school principal will make a little bit less than the high school. The assistant principals, whether they're high school or middle school, are somewhere in the middle there. And then, and I'm not saying this is fair, but I'm just saying this is how it is. And I know because been there, done
I know
that.
that.
Elementary principal will make less typically than the high school or middle school principal. Not fair, but that's just the way it is.
When is their contract up?
It's up.
Probably the same time as the teachers, I think, which would be 17.
Oh, you mean the original contract, not this administrative contract. You talking about their ballot?
Yeah, that was contract.
Yeah, union contract.
Union is it?
Well, the teachers is June of 2017, I'm not sure about.
So there, I think there's
I think when
probably
they settled,
in line with the teachers.
we can find out there. And then I will put it back, put it in.
Put it on finances.
Okay, that's no problem.
I put athletic staffing on there because, again, it was brought
Well, what I did, and he's gonna get it together for me, and what his staff is gonna look like for next school year. And I asked him if he has, can he reduce the staff in football? I think we talked to him about football was probably the only area.
Probably one assistant coach fewer we're looking at for next year.
Was every one of those guys paid? I thought some of those coaches were volunteers.
Now he has four.
He said he had
He
four
has
total.
four for football alone.
And
So they're all paid.
I think there was like 7 or 8 of them all together though.
So
the
we're
rest of them-
subsidizing athletics, to almost a $200,000. So I told him if he could look at that, also look at the sport itself, if their kids actually participating. If they're not, we may need to look at that. I don't know what would cause a problem if we eliminate it. And I'm just throwing this out there, but it was tennis. I said, how many kids are involved in it? How many kids, I don't think you have golf anymore. I mean, when I was here, they had golf.
Right.
And I think that was
We said
eliminated.
they golf now.
Yeah, that was
We used to have golf when the golf course was open
Right,
here.
right. So he's gonna look at that, bring his staff.
And then we brought in bowling since then, but I don't know how many is involved with bowling.
He doesn't have any coaches for that, so that must be like through activity.
Must be volunteer coaches,
Yeah.
because there's coaches that coach the bowling team, yeah.
So bottom line, we want to look at reducing the athletic staff. Do you have a percentage, maybe 15% or?
Well, if we could reduce it by 10, I'd be happy.
Well, one of the problems in the past too is because we didn't have a feeder program, but now Bill's starting to build up the feeder program from the township
That is
now.
one of the problems, you don't get the potential. And then the other thing is, I think we've already discussed it, are we gonna stick with pay to play? And if we are, we gotta collect the money for pay to play. That wasn't happening, so we have to look at that program again and determine, and we've talked with Al at the finance committee that if we have pay to play, he's responsible for making sure that money's collected. And we know from time to time it was not.
Well, then we had that, if they had a certain grade point average,
We would give them something back.
we gave them that money back. Now, isn't that a lot of extra work?
Yeah, that is a lot.
Half of it back.
Not sure it's worth paying for the buck with that. I mean, it's good to have sports programs. We don't have pay to play for schools of choice reasons. We want to be an attractive district. So if we can cut 10%, like you're saying, that would go a long way instead of the depth.
And I know our kids don't have to pay as much as what the other schools pay. I mean, some of those other schools, they're paying $60, $65 a sport, so.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to some families.
You're talking cutting 10% from the $200,000 budget.
If we can live with that, and also he can collect the monies for pay to play, because I don't believe that was done.
That sounds like that was very
Very.
loosely run.
Well, and another thing, uniforms, that's been another thing that has been loosely, never turned back in for years. Because some of those girls on Facebook a few weeks ago were talking about how many different uniforms they had that they never turned in.
We'll have to
Yeah.
absolutely.
We need to make a note of that, are we paying for those, I'm sure we are.
When a kid gets a uniform, are they signing something saying, I took possession of a helmet and shoulder pads and one or two
Yeah.
jerseys?
No idea.
That's something I'll have to,
Because wouldn't it seem, if they don't turn the school materials back into the required to, they don't get their diploma, right?
Correct.
right.
So out of all of the assistant coaches, were any of them assigned to administer uniforms and those kinds of things? And do we know what they're actually doing? We don't know.
No, that is
That's a good question.
It is a good question.
I think we're gonna really have to sit down with Al, and just let him know. He said in the future, nobody, in the past, nobody really asked him. So he was just like out there.
I'm gonna be asking him, I've already asked him.
Nobody asked him?
Well,
Nobody gave his budget. See, when I was here, he had his budget, he had to stay within it.
we used to have a full-time athletic director that worked full-time and was paid full-time, where he's only paid a stipend because he can only make so much because he's retired.
But then that shouldn't stop the responsibility.
No.
And they did when I was here, he did a good job. He did.
So that is a discussion that I will have, and I've already told him that, I need things tightened up, because I don't see clean systems. Well, we had that conversation months ago in January when there were questions about pay to play, and I realized that we have a pay to play system, however, it's not being enforced. And when I asked him about it, he said, well, nobody asked him, the coach said, well, nobody asked me for the money, so I did. And we can't, we will surely go under financially if we continue operating like that. We have to have strong systems in place.
And maybe there's something that the coach don't get their check for the sport for the season until they have inventoried all their equipment and all their equipment is back in, and have them sign a note stating that all their equipment has been turned back in.
I just made a note here about uniform return policy and equipment.
But that's what I said, if the coach don't get their check until they have everything turned back in, then maybe they'll watch it closer.
I'm not sure you can withhold somebody's pay. I can't know what, because we issue uniforms and everything, we can't tie that to a paycheck, so I'm not sure you can legally do that.
No, I'd like to take it back to the student. You sign something saying you have this equipment and uniform and you have to turn it in, and if you don't, then here's the consequences. So, I do want to just go back over to the agenda that you put together, Marty, to let you know that the interview, the high school is currently interviewing for the professional learning coordinator that was in the Title II budget. This is just for the high school, and they're having their interviews last week, and apparently there was not anyone from the personnel committee on the interview team, but there was a board member on the team. And they have a second round of interviews tomorrow, and there'll be a board member on that team too. And we have several jobs that still have not been filled. Some of those postings are have just expired, like the counselor, high school counselor, the special ed teacher. I'm looking at the list from our last personnel committee meeting. So several of these, all of these have been posted, and none of them have been filled, but those postings are just expiring. And so, and we do have one that's being interviewed for now, and they have some very excellent candidates, apparently. We have not since our last meeting, any retirements or resignations. But this is the season, and so we expect that if there's going to be any more, that they will let us know soon, especially resignations. You know, people always think the grass is greener on the other side, so folks are out there looking. And unfortunately, we don't know that they're really looking until they let us know. And sometimes it's not till August.
Right,
Which
2
really-
weeks before school starts.
Before
Yeah.
school starts, which really then makes it a challenge for us, but we'll deal with whatever comes our way. We'll just deal with it.
Marty had also, was part-time groundskeeper, what we're trying to do, it already.
That's what I was wondering, you had the posting for it, and
He
I
hasn't posted, the person's kind of doing the job, the union agreed that this person could only do so many hours because they were, I don't know if he's receiving retirement money or, yeah, I think he is. I can't remember now. He was-
if it's the same one we've always had, he wouldn't be retired, yeah?
No, it's the
Oh.
same one, but they want the job kind of posted, the union agreed with it, nobody applied. He can only make so much money, so he's already in the
Yeah, he's
system.
in that system.
So he's doing utility and bus driving anyway.
Oh, that's a different one, okay, I know who that one is, but then the one that helped him, is he still Bob, because he's.
No, he's still just a regular sub.
Oh, okay. That's what I was wondering when we had,
And once we met with the union, they asked us if we would just post a job and do it. They didn't have any problem. He can only make so much money an hour. And he's actually doing a little bus driving and a little groundskeeping. So I said, no problem, it's not gonna touch his budget wise.
okay.
In fact, I'm saying.
I mean, that's why I brought it up, because I didn't know who you were talking about.
Right, because you thought it may have been Bob, yeah.
Yeah. Because I thought, because he's done it forever, so I thought, oh, did he leave, you know?
Right. So I just looked over at your list.
Expulsions, I had an expulsion hearing last week. It was a student who brought a paintball gun to sell. And actually did sell it. And part two of that, the student who he sold it to will be in this afternoon. He and his parent will be in this afternoon to come before you.
Well, it was brought to my attention because it's always, you can't get a quorum, but I was asked, is it possible to first get a quorum of board members available and then just tell those parents that's when the expulsion hearing is going to be, instead of trying to work around the parent schedule and then you can't find the board members? Being that they have to be there, why can't we set it up so that you have your board or 4 board members available, and then you contact the parents and say, this is when the expulsion hearing is going to be? Instead of trying to find 4 board members after you set it up with the parents.
One of the issues that we have is there's time limits for these. I mean, the kids have rights
Right.
to.
But I meant if as soon as you got the notice that you were going to expel them, if you got a hold of the board and found 4 board members and then just let the parents know this is when the hearing is going to be.
We can do that. We can work on that. That's another one of those systems that we can tighten up.
Because it seems to me that every time we can't have it, it's because the board members are asked at the last minute, can you be there on a certain day? Where,
Yeah, because it has to be voting, it has to be a body that can vote. For this last one, and for this one, this is one that really doesn't have to come before the board.
Okay.
Because the policy says that
right.
superintendent can do those with involving weapons, dangerous, and so, even though some people may consider paintball guns not to be weapons, they are
Weapons.
weapons. They, have you ever held a paintball gun? I had never seen one until it was brought to me. It looks like a gun. It feels, it's heavy. It's heavy and it can be used inappropriately and therefore in a dangerous situation.
I worked in the prison, as many of you know. There was a young man in prison for bank robbery, and he did it with a paintball gun.
Oh my goodness.
So,
Is that what they use when they run their races, the paintball guns, so that they get all different colors? Oh.
I don't know. So the last thing on my agenda is interim superintendent plans and the board's commitment to move forward. It's, of course, the last meeting, Superintendent Hill resigned, and so now we do not have a superintendent. We have an acting superintendent whose contract is over June 30th of this year. And the contract says in the event that the current superintendent, which would have been Tom Hill, does not return by July 1st, this agreement will be negotiated. So I guess I am just looking for what's the board's plan in moving forward with this position. And again, hoping that there will be no gaps in coverage of leadership for the district. I am interested in continuing doing what I'm doing to help the district at least until we get out of the deficit, which is a couple of years. But at our June 8th meeting, the board really should let me know what its plans are, so we don't have a gap in services.
and your contract is ending June 30th?
June 30th.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I I will speak for myself as a member of personnel. I'm willing to effectively, on July 1, move your title from acting to interim. And I think that we should look then, and the ship isn't sinking anymore. Most of the holes have been plugged. So let's continue with what we have and work with that. That's my feeling, work with that down the line.
North Star Staffing, when we hired them, said if the superintendent didn't work out the first year, then they would do the second year free.
I don't care about North Star, and free or not, because North Star hasn't really done any. North Star had a lot more information than they ever shared with us. They need to take part of the responsibility for the pickle that we're in.
Well, that's why they said they would do it for free.
Well, free's not always good. Nothing's free.
I would love to see the contract that you have with North Star, because to be very honest, they may owe you money. They really should. We had a superintendent that did not last a year, really did not last 6 months.
Well, the contract that they signed stated that if anything happened during that first year of the superintendency, then they would do a superintendent interview at no charge to the district.
So was that other guy who came, was that supposed to be that interview with no charge?
No, they would do a regular superintendent
Okay,
search.
because that was not, I'm saying, I don't know, if they owe us some money, let's get it back, and let's say goodbye, North Star, because they haven't done
Now, I'm gonna
anything really
speak
help us.
from a financial point as well as what you decide to do about superintendent. Right now, and I think Pete and I were working on that, and Pete, you can chime in anytime. We would probably save money if we could pay Carol's salary from Title I and General Fund, 50-50. And, we could do that. And if we don't do that, she will be 100% Title I, and we'll have to have a superintendent that's 100% General Fund. I think you both all three are aware that you're not gonna find good candidates that are willing to come to a deficit district. And because of all the publicity we've had about the last one, I think you're gonna end up getting somebody with no experience, come right aboard, and gonna do the same thing. This is just my opinion. To me, I wanna get out of the deficit. If you all don't have a problem with Carol's administrative responsibilities, if she's not carrying them out, I think you need to hold her feet to the fire.
That's right.
And that's, go ahead, Mr. Nelson.
I support Dempsey. I want to add, and want to get on the record that, first of all, free isn't good. Districts that have successfully brought in top superintendent candidates, by the way, of using the ASP process and people. Yep, it's more money, but they've also gotten quality candidates and not in the news and the media and everything else with the negativity that we've experienced. That said, this district is stable. The staff is working with administration. We have no grievances. Beyond all that, and in my opinion, we'd be foolish to change that at this point in time, especially not just with the debt, but with the community has settled down, the staff has settled down, people are beginning to work together, and they see positive again. And we need to continue on that path, so I will support Dempsey 100%. I think we're absolutely foolish to enter into that search at this point. Everything that this district has failed to do, but somebody's got a document that I'm completely unaware of. I've yet to see a set of goals and objectives or any strategic plan for this district. And that needs to be developed. When corporations look for CEOs, they look for that CEO based on, this is what we need to accomplish, who has the skill sets to do this. It's not, I just need to see somebody qualified to be a CEO. I need somebody that can come in and accomplish these goals. And this board has not done that. And that is crucial. I believe that over the next year, we've got to get a long-term strategic plan in place. And bringing somebody brand new in my opinion, would hinder that process. And I think
There
that's
were
very,
goals
very
set
important.
up.
Pardon me?
There were goals that were
Okay,
set
well, I don't
up.
know what were or what was, but I've never seen goals and objectives.
And
Tom
then,
Hill certainly did not come in here and establish any goals and objectives. none. I don't know what administration did before that. I can only speak since my time on the board in July. There is not a one out there. And how do we determine where this district truly needs to go? And what leadership is capable of getting it there if we don't establish the goals and objectives?
In January, when the superintendent's evaluation is done, most generally that superintendent at that time, after their evaluation is done, sets up a list of goals that they want to see accomplished. Before Tom, there was a strategic plan, 5-year strategic plan that was supposed to be followed.
But what you're talking about is the board coming up with goals and
No,
objectives.
according to our policy manual, the right way to establish a strategic plan is all stakeholders.
Okay.
So that's the board, that's administration, that's
And that's the
teachers,
Mhm.
that's the community.
Mhm. And that's a process.
It's a long process.
That's a process. That's
You were involved with this here when we did the strategic plan, weren't you?
Way back.
And those goals were set up, 5-year goals were set up.
When was that done?
Huh?
Oh, that was probably back in 2007.
Oh, so it sounds like we are.
No,
June.
when,
Cause
We
I
have
got-
so much, we have.
would have been 6 or 7 years ago.
When we weren't in a deficit. So that changes everything.
Well, and I think the other side, and I agree with you, Pat, that we're in a priority, we have 2 schools in a priority status. My concern, and I'm gonna just, Marty, and I've always been direct, I think that the upset the school and the community now might be a negative than a positive.
It would be death.
Because right now, we're settled down,
It's not as settled down as a lot of people realize.
well, you're gonna have.
Well, you're gonna, you know, they're always gonna
But
get
see,
with you
when
on
I
Facebook.
meet
We're
with the
talking about
teachers'
realities.
union, and we can come together and solve all the grievances that we have, that's a plus. And you're trying to make the district go forward. When we can get with the, now I haven't heard about any outraged parents that, Mrs. Selby hasn't set out and solved the issue. And we've had them come and go. So I'm concerned, I would have to agree that the stability, because I know the state's concerned about our stability because they asked people out when we went to the meeting. They said, are you stable now? And we went out on the ledge and said, yes, we're stable.
Let me reiterate what I said in previous meetings. We're already in 15-16 now, so, 15-16 is pretty much a done deal. This is a process you mentioned is going to take about 2 years. In terms of a good search will take 1 full year. You're not going to get good candidates until we're out of deficit, out of priority schools. You're going to get more Tom Hills than you're going to get. MDE is expecting her to continue on until we're out of deficit. I personally, as an outsider, don't see where the debate is. I agree with you two in terms of there's really no debate here. I mean, she's the only qualified candidate for this position. We're lucky she's willing to take this. From a financial standpoint, it's a complete no-brainer because if you were to bring in a brand new superintendent, what Tom Hill is making, it would cost the district $170,000 per year. So you're talking $340,000 over 2 years compared to what Carol's willing to work for. It's a no-brainer. We can't afford $340,000. We've lost with the legal expenses, with all the other expenses that we've incurred with the previous superintendent. We need these savings to offset that. So from my financial standpoint, it's a no-brainer, but that's your decision.
And all of those things notwithstanding, we still have the best person at this point in
Exactly.
time for the position.
That's the most important. You've got the best person here, but you want and all these other reasons.
Yes.
It's just a no-brainer. So again, until we're out of this, it's going to take a good 2 years to get us out of deficit, out of priority, get these board policies all set, and then we can look at bringing in viable candidates at that point.
Well, as a committee, it sounds like, well, you're president of the committee.
Mr. Bruns told me he was putting it on the regular agenda for discussion for the regular board meeting.
It probably does not hurt to have a recommendation one way or another from, this is the personnel
Yes.
committee. And something does need to be done by June 30th. Well,
Well, he said he was bringing it out, he was putting it on the agenda for the regular meeting for the whole board to discuss and decide.
So, well, and that's the way we usually do things. So it's a recommendation from the committee.
Yeah, I think that the committee needs needs to.
Jay isn't here.
We know Jay isn't here, but we can.
Well,
talk
as
about it.
president, he wants it on for that, so.
Well, we can discuss it, but I think we need to also have a recommendation. And the recommendation that I would state from this committee is that effective July 1, Mrs. Selby's position be moved from interim to acting superintendent.
You mean acting to interim?
Yes, acting to interim.
And we're gonna need a final decision on June 8th for budgeting purposes, because that's what we're gonna present to Deb for June 22nd, so that, I just want to note that to you. That we,
Right, and Pat, you're sitting here, and I'm pretty sure we're in agreement, but that's something that you could support.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's, we don't need a gap, we don't need any issue going back to issues with Title I or anything else.
And Mrs. Say,
What?
please, whenever you do decide to do a search,
Huh?
whenever you decide to do a search, I would not recommend the company you have already been using. I think you need to get a review around the state of who they're using, because I think if we look back, we've had some candidates that you've had here that you weren't satisfied with.
Well, the board chose them because MASB wanted almost over double the amount, that's why they went with that.
I would recommend you take your time. You would really do the research. You would actually go to the district, which I know we didn't do, and actually spend some time talking to not only administration, but the workers there.
You want the janitor to tell you.
Right.
Well, and I think because of the time frame and everything, that it was rushed, you know.
Which is unfortunate, because it's
Right.
a very serious business. And so choosing a superintendent for a district should not be a rush job. It should never be a rush job.
Well, I know, but under the circumstances, school was ready to start. You had another school that was in priority school that you didn't know was going to be, and all that was,
well, we just can't repeat that mistake again.
then we ended up having to get a new finance director and everything else, and it's just been one thing after the other.
We just need to put the fire out here.
He said he gonna stay with Carol anyway, right?
Okay, we got a
So tell him
team.
I'm not coming out of retirement.
And I will stay, God willing, and our board willing, I will stay and be part of the team to help us get out of the deficit, and in the meantime, you can
School's out of priority.
What do we need to do to formalize a recommendation coming out of it? I mean, we've got,
We don't need a recommendation coming out of the committee, because Jay is already scheduled to put it on the agenda for discussion and action at the regular meeting.
Oh.
That
but
was
that's the
not,
first time you used the word action.
huh?
That's the first time you used the word action.
No, he said it was going to be a discussion action item on the
But
agenda.
you didn't say action before, so that.
Well, I'm
puts a
sorry,
different-
I didn't.
No, but that just puts a different spin on it, but it seems, if he's gonna do that, well, I'll talk with him.
I mean, from my perspective, it seems helpful if you did get a recommendation on this committee to present to the board.
So help me with the Roberts rules, what do we need? We got 2 active committee members here?
You only got, yeah, 2 that are part of this committee.
Well, you have 3 board members.
So we got 3 board
You
members,
have
so we
3
can.
board members.
So
Okay.
you 2 approved it.
Okay, well,
So
do
then.
you have it formalized? Do you want me to
Yeah,
restate it?
So that was the vote 2-1?
Yep.
Well, let's make it official.
Recommendation.
I won't go over Jay's head.
So my question to you, Marty, and I know I can ask that.
Ask it, go ahead.
Why would you not want Carol to be here for the next
Well-
year too?
For one thing, like I said, this is supposed to be the board agenda. I've always put together my own agenda for my own
But that
personnel
doesn't-
meeting. And Jay told me he was putting it on the regular agenda for discussion and action for the whole board. So I don't feel it should be at personnel when he already told me.
But you have
But-
2
but she
fellow
didn't-
board members that have said they don't mind Carol staying.
Well,
I want you to answer me why you would not want Carol to stay as interim. I mean, that's the
Have I not been
question.
doing the job?
If you're not happy with her doing the job, I think that needs to be stated. Do you feel that she's not capable?
I'm not stating anything one way or the other, because I don't want my statement on YouTube, so I refuse to state it.
So in this case, no statement is a statement.
Okay.
Well, that's a matter of opinion.
And opinions, everybody has at least one.
Well, I can't,
I abstain.
okay. That
All right.
answers my question.
Thank you very much for your support.
You got it.
Is that the end of it?
I think that is the end, unless there's anything else for the.
Marty has legal update on it.
I don't know what legal updates you wanted.
My agenda didn't matter.
Well, actually, it does, but if you want the superintendent, acting, interim, or whatever, to respond to these, and kind of need to know beforehand what's on the agenda. So what legal update are you asking for, Ms. Aikman?
Nothing wrong.
School bell? I just have to look up on her.
The reason I had the school bell on there
Uh-huh.
was because when we put the school bell together, they were always supposed to come out prior to the sports season, so that a lot of people would cut it out and put it on their refrigerators so that they had it. For the last couple issues, it's not been out until almost the end of the sports season.
Okay, so,
So the schedule is off for the printing of the school bell.
And I brought this up before, is that if they can't get it out when it needs to be out, then maybe we need to get it out earlier.
okay.
It wouldn't hurt to have it out earlier if it's, or do we need to look at another company to do it?
No, we probably haven't got the information in time.
Well,
I would
I'll talk
think-
to Robin
okay,
and
we
see
can
what
talk
we can
to-
do to.
Well, Robin told me that they have a certain schedule they go by, and if they got something they need to do, then we just get pushed aside.
We're paying them, aren't we?
Yeah, we definitely,
Huh?
we're paying it.
I know we're paying them, and that's what I said, and it makes it bad when you only got 2 weeks of the schedule left. The school bell comes out now, and the people look at it and they say, well, how come we're only getting it now, you know?
So I'll check with Robin to see what we can do to step that up. Legal update, what legal update are you looking for?
I was just wondering, those are things I put on every personnel meeting, so that if there's something there that can be brought to our attention, it is.
You probably have more of a legal update than.
Huh?
You probably have, you as board members probably have more of a legal update than I do. I know some of you are.
Well, I just wondered if there was any other,
No, I don't have any. And you have review evaluations on here?
huh?
You have review evaluations
Right,
on
at the
here?
end of the year, board members are always able to go in and read all the evaluations for the staff for the year, and I was just wondering, are they ready to be read?
Well, number one, no. And number two, I'm not sure that that is an appropriate function of the board to be reviewing staff evaluations.
We do it every year.
I'm
not
not
sure that that's
everybody.
I'm not sure that that's an appropriate function of the Board of Education to be reviewing staff evaluations.
That's those employees don't report to us.
No,
They
the
have
only
to report.
employee that reports to the
We
board.
review your evaluation.
Absolutely.
And you might have some repercussions.
Yes.
I'd be hesitant to participate in that without a legal opinion.
Right, and just because it's something that was done in the past doesn't make it right. And if Carol Selby doesn't do anything else in my tenure in this district, I'm gonna help us get on the right track so we are not legally responsible for things that we shouldn't be doing and academically deficient when we really shouldn't be. I want us to be on the same wavelength with any other school district in this county, any other school district, and that includes the board too. So that'll mean a review of what the board is doing, past practice, just to make sure. It's very simple, like this review evaluation. It might have been done in the past, but I'm not sure that that's appropriate.
You and I will talk about it later, okay?
Sure.
Because something happened Thursday.
Okay. If there's nothing else, well, this is your meeting. There's
Okay.
nothing else on my agenda, and it looks like we went through everything on your agenda too. And just as a request, in the future, when we have an update meeting, I know there'll probably always be a few things, not a lot, but a few things that I would need to talk to the committee about, but I would really appreciate if there's some things that
Well, I always
share.
get on the one from the month before and,
Well, again, just because you've done something in the past doesn't mean you have to do it. So all these things that are on your agenda, should not be a standing agenda
Huh?
for your committee. Your committee meeting agenda should not be a standing agenda. But that's something we can talk about.
well, that was one of the things I learned as chair. That's the way Marv and I always did it. We always put together our agenda for our whatever, because there are committees. And according to MASB, your committee chair should put together the agenda that they want.
When is the next meeting?
Well,
Always at the 20th, so we can set up.
well, the only problem is I gotta get back with Jay again, because Jay's got a schedule
Okay.
conflict. That's why
So
he's
the
not here
next meeting
today.
probably won't be until
Huh?
after, do we need another meeting before the budget is presented? Probably not.
No.
Okay. I don't think you meet in July, do you? Do you have a board?
We
meeting?
used to have a personnel meeting every month if needed,
Okay.
If needed.
if needed.
So, if there's some positions that come up that need approval, posting or whatever.
If teachers resign. or we-
Yeah, I will let you know, and we'll see what the next steps are.
Because I was assuming if a teacher retires or leaving that position exists, we just post it automatically. I don't know what the personnel committee has to say about it.
No, the only thing, that's why the personnel committee's on the interview team.
Okay. So
That
we
was,
can automatically post that position if someone vacates.
is when there's a position, usually the personnel committee gets a copy of the postings.
Okay, but we don't have to meet about it, just give you a
No.
copy. Okay.
And just, as an FYI, I reviewed the board policy, the board notes, and there's not board policy, but the interview committee has to be on the personnel committee has to be on the interview team. That's not board policy. It's,
It was a procedure that we've used.
okay, it's not board policy.
No, I didn't say policy, I said it's a procedure.
Okay. So it's not always gonna happen, but we certainly can make sure that you're
There have been
invited.
times when a personnel committee member hasn't been available, but I think that was only for the time that happened was for the kitchen help. So they just went ahead and interviewed without a board member being on there because there wasn't one available. But I've always tried to make sure that there was one available. Sometimes I was the only person at the interview.
I have nothing else.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I need you to sit here with me a minute afterwards. You.
Okay, I have